Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'd first like to thank you on behalf of Rashad Murphy and my co-counsel Danny Hernandez for the patience and the attentiveness that you've shown us all over what feels like about 6 months. In all seriousness, because this is a serious matter, sometimes we need just a little bit of levity every once in a blue moon to kind of get both of our feet back on the ground. All of us have our commitments. We have our family. We have, in particular, a special day coming up. We have our personal obligations. But certainly as you sit here listening to the evidence over the past 2 weeks, I'm sure if you didn't initially understand it, you now understand how important this process is. Remember that what Ms. Doherty tells you in her closing statement is not evidence. It is her interpretation of the evidence. What I tell you, what Mr. Petrides tells you, what Mr. Wise tells you, what Mr. Sonardi tells you is not evidence. Evidence comes from the witness stand. Evidence comes from those items of evidence that have been admitted for your review that will go back with you to the jury room for your deliberations, whether it be videos, whether it be photographs, whether it be items of any kind. And you are the triers of fact, not us. We interpret what we believe the evidence has shown you. And therefore, you can presume and expect we would see things in a different light. I represent Rashad Murphy. As you know, Rashad Murphy sits right there in that first seat. And it's the first seat of a very long L-shaped table with a table behind the table. And the reason that that is important is because you know, because we banged in jury selection for day upon day, that Mr. Rashad Murphy, as well as all of the other defendants, have maintained that they are not guilty, and that presumption of innocence follows them until such time as the evidence proves to you each element. You heard Ms. Doherty talk to you a little bit about certain particular crimes, and she said, element number 1, element number 2. You will be instructed by the court on each one of the charges that have been brought against every one of the defendants. For the most part the same, but some a little bit different, and they will all have elements. And you have promised us, me in particular, because I'm the one standing here, that you will hold the state to its burden to prove each and every one of those elements as to each charge that has been presented to you for consideration, beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. Rashad Murphy, plain and simple, cannot be placed in Tampa, Florida on 4:40 a.m. on June 23rd of 2024, when Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, was killed. The evidence has shown you that Mr. Murphy's phone, and when we talk about phone, we talk about life. We talk about an extension of our breath, an extension of our arm, an extension of our pocket. We all certainly may have a different perception about our phone, but no one leaves their phone in another city to go away for a couple of days unless it's an accident. Not even the smartest of criminals. Nobody anticipates, hey, I don't want somebody to see my Instagram. I don't want somebody to track my phone and give location data through cell sites. Nobody wants and thinks there's going to be timing advance that is going to ruin or complicate whatever crime I intend to commit. What the evidence shows you, I believe, is that Mr. Murphy's phone is not tracking from Jacksonville to Tampa. It is not in Tampa. It is not moving around Tampa at any relevant time to this murder. And the theory of prosecution as to motive is just misplaced. That is evidence. That's what the evidence tells you. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how you categorize that and what I believe the law and what you will be instructed tells you what to do with it. In addition to the absence of Rashad Murphy's phone in Tampa, which is very significant considering everything you know about phones and everything you learned that you probably didn't know about phones before you sat in those seats. The state would suggest to you that evidence of Mr. Murphy's presence in Walmart on June 21st at about 10:20 a.m. at night provides strong evidence that he participated in the murder of Charles Jones, and it is in fact shooter number one. And why do they do that? Solely and simply because the clothing that he was wearing during the course of the video captured at Walmart, as compared to shooter number one in the Home 2 Suites and Tesla videos, is similar. I know the state suggested to you, well, who wears a beanie in June? Well, a lot of people do. A beanie is a standard piece of clothing that I would suggest to you is yearly. No matter that it's hot, no matter what the temperature might be, it's an article of clothing. It is an article of clothing like a black hoodie is, like black jeans are, like black military boots are, and my suggestion would be in your everyday life, think to yourself how often or how little you see that manner of dress. Black hoodie, what Detective Ramos opines is a black leather belt, black jeans, and black military boot. I would ask that you pay close attention to State's Exhibit 100 and State's Exhibit 59, which will be with you in the course of your deliberations, but they have provided to you, and I will provide to you, this composite that would show Rashad Murphy at Walmart buying items, and then to your right, shooter number one. Detective Ramos made a comparison of those clothing, and a significant point in his testimony would be what he sees in the form of a unique tear in both sets of jeans at the left knee. Recall that he described it when asked as a perfect match. As we look at Exhibit 59 and 100, a composite that is here for you to view at this particular time, you're going to have to draw your own conclusions when you look at this, and you watch it on your screen, or you collaborate with each other and decide, does anything in those two sets of clothing, other than their style and their color, cause you to believe that it is evidence sufficient to convict Rashad Murphy of premeditated first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted premeditated first-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder? What is equally important is the testimony of Detective Christopher Drabeck. You remember Detective Drabeck is a Jacksonville gang investigator. Didn't really talk to you about a specific gang, but gave you an overview. But his main purpose in his sworn testimony at trial was really his interrelationship with this particular investigation, a little bit different than some of the other Jacksonville detectives who played more of a part in talking to you about gangs. Remember that Detective Drabeck had several roles. That relates to Rashad Murphy and the evidence, or what I would suggest is the lack of evidence in this case. Detective Drabeck located the Walmart video. He was the one that provided to the Tampa Police Department. Additionally, recall that he took the post-Miranda statement of Rashad Murphy after his arrest in Jacksonville. Recalling Detective Drabeck's testimony, Rashad Murphy began that interview being less than candid, and that's polite. He lied about being in Tampa the weekend of June 21st through June 23rd. He would not, on several occasions, admit going to Tampa or involving himself in any knowledge in anything that he did before or after the murder of Charles Jones. I would submit to you that you use your life experiences. When someone is scared, ladies and gentlemen, when someone is fearful for a wrongful implication, they sometimes make poor judgments, and that's exactly what Rashad Murphy did. It's common to attempt to remove yourself from the closeness of a bad situation, but don't automatically presume that that means and equates one-to-one that he's lying about having committed a murder, because those are two different things. That's for you to decide when you look at the totality of this statement. But that's exactly what Rashad Murphy told Detective Drabeck. Recall that Detective Drabeck said that Mr. Murphy said that he knew, he actually tells him, he knew if he put himself near Tampa, it would implicate him in something he didn't do. So he rationalizes, or he tells him at a certain point of time, probably way too late, why he did this. And it is there for your consideration. And Detective Drabeck told you that. Only after he was confronted with evidence that he got into the Uber and drove back to Jacksonville from the Airbnb parking lot with Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance did he make admissions about what he knew. Because Rashad Murphy was not completely truthful, again, does not make him guilty of first-degree murder. It is for your consideration to determine why. It may not make him the person that you are. It may not make him the person that you would want to be like, but it doesn't, again, make him guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. He actually told Detective Drabeck, as you recall Detective Drabeck's testimony, that he knew at one point in time it made him look like a liar. But what he did tell Detective Drabeck turns out to be very, very important evidence for your consideration. He tells him that he ended up here because he put stuff in his name. Detective Drabeck told you that. He also said that his Airbnb account was used and that he would never book an Airbnb in Tampa and didn't know it was in Tampa. He told Detective Drabeck that. That is an explanation. That is him attempting to explain to Detective Drabeck what occurred. What he said was that his account was used. He also said he thought his vehicle was going to Orlando to take things to his brother. Well, when he's saying that, you don't really put two and two together until you look at the entirety of the evidence. And he said thought he was going to be helped out by having those items taken. You consider the testimony that comes through Detective Drabeck and look at your notes if you took them to determine whether Rashad Murphy even owns a car when the state suggests to you a theory of prosecution that Rashad Murphy drove that silver Chevy Cruze down to Tampa. And why do I say that? Because Rashad Murphy told Detective Drabeck that he borrowed the car for purposes of being used to go to Martin Correctional Institute, which is where his brother is incarcerated. Rashad Murphy then tells Detective Drabeck that he went to go check on the Airbnb. Recall Detective Ramos's testimony that there was phone communication between Davion Murphy's phone, his cousin, and his phone at 5:03 and 5:07 in the morning of June 23rd, the early morning hours of June 23rd. And that's when he went to Tampa, pursuant to those phone calls. He also tells Detective Drabeck that he gets a ride from Darius Beals to Tampa, and that when he gets to the parking lot, he goes to the back door and knocks. No one answers, and he goes back to the parking lot. They are coming out of the Airbnb, and he gets in the Uber with Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews and drives back to Jacksonville. If you'll remember Detective Ramos, he suggested and battled with me a bit on cross-examination, suggesting that Mr. Murphy's interview indicated that he went to the Airbnb and went into it. And that's an important issue. It's something for your consideration when you seek corroboration, when you seek what is the best evidence. And I'll say this now, and I'll probably say it sometime later on. Corroboration is what makes evidence important. Things can't always be corroborated, but when they can, they provide you an important feature for your consideration. And so in State's Exhibit 145, you're going to have that colloquy of that interview for you to listen collectively, individually, one time, 7 times, in order to determine what Rashad Murphy says with regard to entering that Airbnb. Please carefully review 145. So, because Darius Beals had been killed on June 28th, ironically, 5 days after this particular trip, he could not be interviewed with regard to seeking corroboration on this trip with Rashad Murphy. What was done, though, is that his phones were in evidence and collected as part of the investigation of his death, and there was an extraction done. We've learned more than we can ever hope to need for the rest of our lives about extraction. I can only presume, and I certainly don't want to presume wrongly as it relates to each of you individually, but you saw, and the state provided you, cell site location, information, and data that would have you believe shows Darius Beals did not drive Rashad Murphy to Tampa. But the problem crept up that there was more than one phone associated with Darius Beals. And, as you will see and we'll talk about with Rashad Murphy's extraction, it was not a full extraction. The phone was operational. Detective Ramos said that they could not get location data from it. Detective Drabick said that as well. And although the iPhone can be accounted for, the Samsung did not result in the type of extraction. We didn't see that one. There was an extraction. It wasn't put into evidence what its results were. We only saw the results of the iPhone. And what is curious about that is that it doesn't tell us whether or not Darius Beals traveled with Rashad Murphy, as he testified to, and was in possession of the other phone. Now, Detective Ramos, without showing us, told us, well, wasn't turned on that day. Well, I would submit to you, when we're talking about somebody's life, and we're talking about reasonable doubt, and we're talking about the state meeting their burden, what we have to talk about is, can we simply just dismiss that phone was not in Darius Beals' possession? Because Detective Drabick didn't dismiss it. And how do we know that? When I questioned him about it, he said, I could not say where that phone was located, and he could not preclude that it did not travel to Tampa. And that was the right answer. It is the true answer. They cannot tell you that. Recall when Detective Ramos wanted to corroborate Mr. Beals' presence in Jacksonville, he did so by providing 2 pages of thumbnails of pictures. There's Darius Beals. The problem with that was, on cross-examination, we went through every one of those pictures. And do you recall what the bottom line was? None of them were relevant to that time frame that we would have been talking about. It's a nothing burger. Unless it was just left to be taken for granted. They talked about facial recognition, but guess what? Facial recognition, more than one profile for facial recognition can be on a phone. It's very common, especially in shared phones, especially in secondary phones where more than one person may use it. When we look for evidence, ladies and gentlemen, in establishing reasonable doubt, corroboration and support would be the primary means for you to be comfortable with that evidence. While we talk about corroboration in the form of evidence, we come to find out the extraction of Rashad Murphy's jointly possessed phone with his girlfriend, Charmaine Steiger, provides additional information. And why is that important? Because we're relating back to trying to corroborate, number one, what Mr. Murphy told us in his interview. So, as we do that, we first look at State's Exhibit 101. 101, I can't read my writing. It's going to be 101L2. 101L2 is the picture of the floorboard in the vehicle that has a Walmart bag with many items in it. Purchased at Walmart while Mr. Murphy was at Walmart. Why that's important is because Mr. Murphy told Detective Drabeck that he bought those items to go to Martin Correctional that weekend. And there's corroboration to that.